Hello, I am Bentham and welcome back to Factorio Towns, where in the previous episode we set up this nice Chipton sign and also built a new outpost for mining coal over just to the west of our main base. And we're going to start this episode by doing a bit of messing about with the iron. We want to try and get it mined as quickly as possible. So it's dealt with and we can move on to a more permanent mining operation over in the iron deposit to the west of Chipton. It's sort of inside Chipton and sort of not at the same time. It's a bit too far to really be considered part of the town, but not far enough for it to be worth setting up a new town there. But we'll start setting up some mining over there just as soon as everything is done back over here. Also just getting rid of some of the copper that we've ended up in our inventory with. We're trying to rejig the underground belt so that the rails can go between, well, so that the underground belts go under where the rails will be, and we can not have any trouble with that, because the coal line, not the coal line, the copper line, I always do that, will probably be continuing to run to the main base for a little while yet, depending on how long the signs last, because we are coming to the end of the red and green signs now. It will not be long before before the sign shuts down, because it's going to be a while before we get blue. We'll need to set up an oil outpost and a blue science outpost, and I guess also an advanced circuit outpost. There's quite a few that sort of come along all at once. For the blue science, which is always the case. It's always the thing that is really jarring for a factory, and you have to sort of rearrange everything. It's so annoying. There's too much oil stuff involved. I'm never sure if I really like the oil things at the end of the day, because it's always a bit of a fiddly thing trying to make a system that uses oil and other stuff. It's like you have to fit two different systems together that don't really work together very well. Anyway. We've once again rearranged all of the iron miners there. That's the last time we're going to do it. We've now got 10 working on the remaining iron, and they should burn through it pretty quickly, and we'll move on to the new iron deposit. Doing a bit of flooring around in Chipton. We want to try and get the whole outpost floored. I keep calling them outposts. I need to call them towns, because I always call them outposts in Rail World. It's different these are towns. They've got people living in them, maybe? Anyway, over to the iron deposit here, you can have a look at it. It's got a couple of bits of coal in it that are going to be a little bit annoying to deal with, because we'll have to have a bit of a filtration system so that we don't end up with coal contaminating the iron supply and things like that. I mean, it wouldn't get into the iron plates, but it would shut down all of the furnaces and stuff, because it'd just block up the lines, because there's not enough coal consumption in the furnaces, and it's never a good idea to mix the same things on one belt. So we've added in a radar. We've got it tessellating with the radar over in Chipton to make it line up nicely. Though we won't be doing so much of that as we do usually. Usually I like to line them up in a lovely grid, but I'm going to focus more in this series on just having a radar per town. Maybe two in particularly like wide-ranging towns. I guess this does count as 2 in 1 town, because it's sort of in Chipton-ish. So we'll set up some mining for now. Get a little bit of iron coming in, because the iron is running out very rapidly. Over in the bit we're mining at the moment, and it will suddenly just cease entirely once they all finish at the same time. So we want a bit of iron coming in so that things don't shut down entirely, and as such we'll set up our filtration system here. It also lets us get rid of the coal nice and early. With any luck we'll be able to get the coal mined away before we actually start sort of properly mining that area of the iron, because if we get to that it'll be even more of an interference, because we'll have to have the entire output of this mining area pretty much going through a filtering system, which is annoying and limiting, and you have to have a bunch of smart inserters. It's no fun. So we're going to try and filter the little bit that we have now and work from there. So it's nice and simple. It runs onto a belt, and then there's some smart inserters, some set to iron ore and some to coal, to split them as needed. Fairly simple. Sometimes they can get a lot more complicated, as you may have been seeing in Factorio Mass, where I'm trying to separate 6 different kinds of gems plus other stuff that I'm deciding to mix in for the fun of it. You can't really do that sort of thing here, because there's just not enough different things being produced. There's only a few different ores, so it's not worth mixing them to then separate them again or anything like that. It's just best to have them separated as soon as possible. So we're going to run 2 lines back. I could have made it a bit more efficient and had the filtering going on back at the main base, but that would mean that I'd have to run all of the iron on the same belt as the coal all the way there, which I didn't much fancy the idea of. So we'll separate them at source and bring them in on 2 belts. It's not too expensive, really. And really, we probably want to be burning iron at this point, because there's just too much stuff. I've said it before, the map generation has given us too many things, so what I'm going to do is try and just burn as much iron, copper and coal as I can, whether there's need for it or not. So things like sticking with steam power, setting up turrets instead of dealing with bases, so that the biters are constantly using up ammo and things like that, because I don't want it to be too easy. I want to have reason to go out there and build new outposts, and I also want my towns to run out of their raw resources, and that was half of the point of it. So here we go, setting up all of the iron mining on this new deposit. We've only got like 4 miners now working back in the middle of Chipton, and at this point they probably already run out. They only had a couple hundred that they each had access to, and they were all accessing pretty much the same pool of iron ore. So it's going to run out pretty quickly. So we'll get as much coming in as we can, nice and quick. We've got 9 of them there, hooked up to the belt, which already goes into Chipton, though I don't think it's quite connected yet. While the belt is filling up and everything's running down along it, we're going to put a bit of defences in. I can't be bothered putting a proper wall around this. I probably will later, but for now I'm just going to plunk a turret next to every sort of vaguely important point of the mining operation, and that should be fine. And we've got 1 spare, so I just plunk that on the rail line, because why not? Oh, actually I did connect it up, I forgot about that. But there we go, and there are the miners finished, which means that there's no iron ore going to the main base anymore, so we need to do a bit of messing about and reverse some belts. So we get a splitter there, splitting between Chipton's iron supply and the iron supply of the main base, and we'll send it all the way back along, connect it up to there, and we have an iron supply again. And this should be a big help for the furnaces, because a lot of them were shutting down. We shouldn't have any more trouble for a while with the iron rates going into science, particularly considering science is about to run out. So we'll clear away all the infrastructure of the old iron mining, and we can finally just have this as an open area that the rails can run through. We'll get rid of one of those underground belts, it's no longer needed. We've got the 2 important ones that go underneath the rails, and we'll just cut back these walls as far as we can without without exposing some of the copper deposit to the elements, or I guess the biters, because they're the elements. You know, I don't know what I'm saying now. So also messing about slightly with the underground belt so that we can get the wall running alongside the rails and have the rails become a part of the outpost. We can have some gates going in, which is something I can never really have in Rail World, because I always ended up with a station leading directly into a loop, which meant that you couldn't actually put the gates in, because the gates had to be on a straight piece of track that had nothing else on it. Because of the way I'm arranging these, there's always going to be gaps between stations and between stations and junctions and things like that, so that the trains can maneuver well. Otherwise, there'll be horrific pile-ups, well, not pile-ups, traffic jams, I guess, gridlocks and things like that. So we do need to keep a bit more space between the stations. It's good in a way because it sort of persuades you to, or encourages you or whatever, to have your stations a little bit further away from each other, rather than just having a town every 2 feet, which is no fun. So we're going to contain the copper deposit inside the wall. We'll get rid of all the old internal walls now that we're surrounding things in one big main perimeter defense thing. We'll line this with turrets later. At the moment we don't have the materials for it. We've run out of iron, because when we went and visited the main base last, we were quite low on iron already, and there wasn't that much actually there, because the iron supply was coming to a halt thanks to the mining drills running out. So we've done what we can, but we're going to have to go back and get some more iron before we can put in some proper defences. Luckily, the biters aren't particularly angry about Chipton at the moment. Any attacks seem to be going towards the coal mining operation that is just to the south of Chipton, and a little bit to our radar in the west. So that's fine, and it gives us plenty of time to get things sorted, get the materials together that we need, because at the moment it's all going straight through into either steel or science, so we need to keep an eye on that. So back in the main base, we check up on the situation. The iron has not yet had time to build up, so we've not got that much back yet, but we've got a bit. We've got something to be getting on with. We can also resupply on plenty of ammo, and of course copper and steel, and concrete, because we need ridiculous amounts of those. I think I've got like 20 stacks of it in my inventory now, but I think I use up most of that by the end of the episode flooring our 2 towns. So into Chipton, where we will begin our sort of flooring operation. Oh no, we're going over to the iron outpost. It always annoys me when I forget what I was doing. I'm just like, yes, I know exactly what's going to happen next. I'm going to do this. Oh wait, no, what is he doing? What is it? He's gone rogue. Anyway, what we're doing is actually putting in some extra miners for the iron, because when we visited the main base, we realised that there wasn't enough iron coming through still, and we wanted to increase it a little bit more, because it was like half of it was getting siphoned off for Chipton, not leaving quite enough for the main base, because it's got, what is it, like a dozen furnaces there, so you need a dozen miners. We didn't have a dozen miners. We now have 15 in total working, Nearly let some coal get onto the iron line there, which is annoying because I've got this whole filtration system set up, and then I accidentally do a mess up with the belts that just sends the iron straight back onto the sends the coal straight back onto the iron belt again. As you can see, there's some biter corpses in front of our radar there that are a bit angry about me doing some scanning, I guess. They always seem to go for like the radars and the turrets and things like that, particularly the radars, it seems. There's like a priority list that they follow. They also seem to go for pumps, because once again they're going straight through the middle of the coal deposit, and well, the coal town, and going straight for the pumps that are there, or possibly going for it because the turret's there. Then again, they went there before there was actually a turret. They just went straight for the pumps, so they're getting clever. They know what generates the power, and they're trying to stop it. So anyway, I'm doing a bunch of flooring now in Chipton. I keep, like, as the minutes go by, I add more and more things into the area that I'm going to keep floored. Originally I wasn't going to floor the rails, but I changed mine and started flooring that as well. And I'm also going to sort out some roads, get them making more sense with how the rails are going to be arranged in the future. So let's talk about names, because in the previous episode I asked you to come up with suggestions for names of the new coal town. And there were a lot of them. There were quite a lot of them. I'm going to try and list as many different people's suggestions as possible. It's quite long. I've lost count. I think it was something like 50 in total. I'm not sure if the list is quite 50 long. But here it is. We've got Colfell, Colwood, Colbury, Colesbury, Cologne, Colchester, Colwick, pronounced Colic, Colton, Coca-Cola, Koala, Carbonford, Carbonifer, Carbonfield, Carborough, Carbon Canyon, Charton, Dirt Pit, Steamerton, Smog Central, Smoketon, Big Smoke, Gridborough, Hazy Dunes, Black Lakes, Old Bones, Powerhouse, Power Tap, Sparkton, Telsaville, Watton, Wattich, spelled Watwich, Watt Harbour, Electricity, Electon, Breakerburg, Ventar, Escombe, District 12, Marville, Wales, Barnsley, Usewell, High Hazel, 3 Kilometre Island, and Aberpergwim. I'm glad I got that last one right. That's a tough one. It's Welsh, isn't it? So yeah, that was quite the list. A lot of variations on coal, a lot on carbon, and a bunch of other things as well, like steams and like dirt pits and things like that. A few real places, including Wales, which is a country, and Barnsley, which I don't know whether that has relevance to the coal industry or not. I think Wales does. There were a lot of coal mines in Wales, weren't there? And a couple of not quite real places, like 3 Kilometre Island rather than Mile, and also a few completely fictional places such as District 12, the coal mining town from, well, coal mining city, district, whatever it was, from the Hunger Games, and also Marville, the power generation town from Pokemon. So, it was quite the list. It took quite a while to sort of work through it and decide on which ones I wanted to keep and which I didn't. I ended up with a short list of half a dozen of them. So the short list is Colbury, Colwick, or Colic. And I feel like it should be, to me, it should be pronounced Colwick, but I think Colic is the real way of saying it. I don't know. Is colic a disease? It rings a bell. It might be. I don't know. Colton, Carbonfield, Wattich, and Electricity. I didn't much like Colton in the end because we already have a Chipton. I feel like I don't want to just have everything end with ton because it'll get quite repetitive. I guess that's sort of a fallback suffix. If none of the others seem to fit, just call it ton, because that's like the most common suffix you can expect from this sort of naming method. By the way, I'm back in the main base. I always forget to talk about what's actually going on screen when I'm talking about this. There's a bit of a coal issue. All the coal ran out in the main base because we've not got any coal mining there anymore, and I keep forgetting to resupply on coal while I'm there. While I'm not there. And bringing it back to get all the stuff working again. Working on efficiency module research. We're getting very close to the end of all the red and green sites now. Now I'm over in the coal town, and I'm going to double up the production rate, get 4 steam engine columns running, and hopefully have enough of a water supply going. I might have to switch to having 2 pipelines sooner rather than later to have enough water coming through. So back to the list. We had Electricity. And I quite like this. The reason that I liked it was because it reminded me of Lect City, which was from a book I read a very long time ago. I was very young, which I believe was called Tripods the White Mountains by John Christopher, written in the 1960s. And it details I don't know, is details the right word? It tells the story of a world where a War of the Worlds invasion has happened. and the aliens won, took over, and are mind-controlling everyone above the age of 13, and it's the story of how they fought against the invasion and tried to save the... Well, it was a bunch of kids trying to save the parents sort of thing. And I remember very early on in the book, they found the ruins of a power station, and the sign said Lect City. It was, of course, rusted away. It was supposed to say electricity, but they thought, oh, that must have been a city once. I wonder what it was like. And that, for some reason, I remembered that bit quite well. Possibly because at the time when I was 7, I thought that was the most amazing thing ever, and really clever. But yeah, that stuck with me, and I did at one point decide that I was going to call the place Lect City, but in the end I changed my mind because I didn't like the idea of calling it a city, because I don't want there to be any cities in towns. That's not the point of it. It's supposed to be a lot of little industrial towns dotted around the landscape, and there being no sort of central big area which does everything. In fact, I may even split like the steam engines between 2 different towns if it gets a bit much, because I don't want there to be any town that is really, really big and sort of like clearly the center of the rail network. So in the end, I didn't pick Lect City because I didn't want it to be a city. I wanted it to be a town. I wanted to follow the usual naming conventions of British towns. So eventually I narrowed it down to Wottich and Colbury. Ooh, we had a bit of destruction there over in our coal mining operation in Chipton, and later on I'll go and investigate, replace the turret and put a bit more defences in. What it looks like is spitters have started spawning, which is a bit of a worry because it makes it a little bit more fiddly to defend against the biter attacks, because now they can shoot straight over the walls, and you have to pay much more attention to the state that the turrets are in. So anyway, the name I eventually chose, I really considered Wottich, but in the end I wanted it to be a coal thing rather than a power thing. So the name I chose in the end was Colbury, but I did change it slightly. Instead of having it Colbury, I called it Colbury, because that's sort of how the names can evolve. They can lose letters that aren't pronounced particularly strongly, and Colbury isn't that much. It could easily become Colbury even... well, it could easily change the spelling without the pronunciation changing, and then the pronunciation changes afterwards, and things like that. That's sort of one of the things that you can get with British towns. So the town is called Colbury, and I will this time remember to credit the people who came up with the name. There were 2 different people who suggested Colbury. No one actually suggested it spelled that way, but I decided to do it that way anyway. But yes, it was suggested by Raz UK and Hasty Pen. I think that's how it's pronounced. I may have got it wrong. It may be Hasty Pen. I don't know. Hasty Pen seems more likely. Also, I forgot to credit the guy who came up with the name of Chipton. So I will now. He was called Mangledpork. So thank you very much to all of you guys. Your suggestions have been set in stone and will be here till the end of days. I probably, even if I deconstruct a town, I'll probably leave the sign there. In fact, if a town stops having a purpose, I might just leave it there anyway and have it continue to be there, but the trains just always drive past it. That seems like a cool way of doing it, like the abandoned subway stations of London and things like that. Well, not just that, you get abandoned train stations everywhere, and it's quite cool because the trains often go straight through them and no one even realises they're there, but they are there and stuff like that. Anyway, we're back in the main base, resupplying the guns, because they've taken quite a beating over in the east. I decided to start putting in more of a proper wall here. We just had sort of 2 turrets surrounded by walls, but I'm going to sort of defend it a bit more, have 4 guns and have them all fully equipped and inside 1 perimeter wall. Once again having some trouble with coal, because once again I forgot to properly resupply on coal while I was over in Colbury. So I'll have to go over there again, just grab a bunch of it. We have set up a storage chest for it, which will be a big help. We can just grab a bunch out of there and do plenty of resupplying with that. But we're over in the coal mining of Chipton, which will one day service Colbury. That may well be our first train. If the coal runs out quicker than I was expecting in Colbury, then we'll start delivering from here sooner rather than later. What I'm thinking is that we actually set up an extra station here, because even though I was saying that it's not really far enough to be a new town, it sort of is, and what we could do is have it as sort of like Chipton North and Chipton South. So it is still the same place, but it is a slightly different part of it. Anyway, we've got a ton of concrete, and I tried to concrete the entirety of our power production, but I ran out pretty rapidly just because of the ridiculous amount of concrete that you need to floor anywhere, really. It's always far more than you expect. But anyway, there goes the last of our red and green science. We've got no more to do. We've got a couple of like red, green, and alien sciences that we could do, but I'm going to leave those. So I set it to advanced oil processing, and we'll have to do that in future. So I shall say goodbye. Thank you for watching, and I shall see you next time.